Matthew chapter 23. We're going to take chunks of this passage as we go through it this morning. Matthew chapter 23, starting in verse 1. Then Jesus said to the crowds and the disciples, "The experts in the law and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat." In other words, they have a position of God-ordained authority. Therefore, pay attention to what they tell you and do it. But do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they teach. They tie up heavy loads, hard to carry, and put them on men's shoulders, but they themselves are not even willing to lift a finger to move them. Jesus confronted a problem with some boundary markers. And for us, we try and play the part sometimes, right? If we're Christians or we're hanging out with Christians or we see somebody from church. I love going to Kroger. And if this is your story and you're involved in this, I'm just loving it because it's fun. But you're people pushing their buggies and stuff like this, and they bump into me or somebody from church, and they start doing the dance of like, the wine is for cooking, and I'm like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Lighten up, right? But we try and what is that person's expectations? Am I living up with it? I gotta deal with this. So if I find you at Kroger, I'm looking. No, I'm just kidding. Jesus' problem with these Pharisees wasn't what they were teaching. Okay, the Mosaic Law, 10 Commandments, 613 additional, that wasn't put in there to be a burden on these people's back. It was put there to clarify the 10 Commandments. It wasn't supposed to be additional. It was just to help them see that you are supposed to be different from everybody else because God called you out. And that's not the way they were playing this game. They were pretending. They were mask wearers. Sorry, too soon? These guys missed the heart, and they were focusing on the external, the stuff that you could see. The discussion really started in the previous chapter. So if you looked at Matthew 22, where they were asking Jesus questions. That sounds noble, right? I'm going to learn from the master teacher. But actually, they were trying to trip him up. They wanted him to stumble over his words or say something that they could throw back in his face or tear down his reputation. But they were asking him all these questions. And so one of them said, "Teacher, what is the most important commandment?" In other words, you better get this one right because we're all watching. And Jesus said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength. Love your neighbor as yourself." Pretty simple answer. He skipped their rule book, all the external stuff that they were focusing on, the stuff that could be measured. I can look at you and see if you've got the right stuff on. Is your phylactery there? You've got your stuff right. You look the part. You're good to go. Jesus skips to the heart of the matter, the stuff that you can't see so much by what you observe. Contrary to what you might have heard, the way of Jesus is not a bunch of things you can't do. It's not a list of rules. God doesn't have angels watching you with a clipboard and a long ruler to just kind of when you mess it up. He's holy. He called us to be holy. There is a line. We don't get to make it. What is sinful and what is right is defined in God's word. End of story. But sorry. God's word is the final answer. He gets to say that. But if you think that it's about following all those rules, you've missed it too. That was the Pharisees' problem. They made it about the rules instead of about the heart. And Jesus reminded them it's about love.